Come sit with mommy. Come here.
Okay.
Okay. We'll just ignore Riley. Is that filming?
Yes.
Okay.
We're on there.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Ah, the second hello. Okay, so obviously, hello. You're the first guest.
I'm honored. I don't know. You put out that question. I'm not sure if people were hoping for someone maybe more exciting than me.
Well, there's Riley here too, so.
There is Riley. We're both guests, Riley.
Okay, so this podcast is an interesting one, and I think it's one that can't really be. We talk about it a lot, and we've been talking about it a lot, and the topic of, how do we make better humans? And we're passionate about that pursuit, and the gym and Between the Ears are our vehicles and outlets to do that. The reason we're having talking about making better humans really came about from Gareth, a friend of mine from the UK, from Wales, who we met out at the Do, sent me an email about my recent BTE Insider newsletter, where it was the red pill, blue pill,
Right.
and said like, hey, what basically the practice does, or our pursuits, or what StrongFit does, and why Between the Ears and StrongFit are so aligned, is that it's in the business of building better human beings. Like, that's it. It's not about the sandbags. It's not about the stuff we do during events or the workouts. Boiled down to the core, it's about building better human beings.
Right.
Helping build better human beings. There's a little bit of, I think, some clarification that can happen with that, though, because I have no idea what it means for you to be a better human being. Mm-hmm. You personally, people we work with, members at the gym, like, that's not up to us to decide. I have no idea what it means for you to be a better human being. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think when you talk about being a better human, there's sort of this like two categories. There's the things that if you ask somebody on the street, you'd probably get a lot of the same answers, like not generic things, but being kinder, being more thoughtful, like general values of like what it means to be, I guess, like a good human. Mm-hmm. But I think that's kind of like, those are fine, but where we're like, those are a little bit of a throwaway. I think that's more about like how people act. Being better on a like personal scale is much deeper, I think. And for each person, it's probably always changing, and it can mean a lot of different things relative to different areas of their life. So I think it's easy to make it a general blanket statement of like, oh, being better means, not flipping out at somebody on the road, or doing something thoughtful for someone, or not swearing in front of your kids. But like, yeah, that's fine. But where it really is impactful is the bigger things, the more personal.
And the only person who can decide what being a better human being is the individual.
Right.
Not us.
Right.
So, and that's a big thing I think to clarify, because I mean, and we're personally along this journey every day. Like, we're nowhere close to having anything really figured out. We might be further along or have some different experiences than others, but the reality of it is, like, no, we are very much still in the pursuit and on the way, and haven't arrived. And I think when I say Between the Ears builds a better human being, I 100% believe it. Mm-hmm. But it's more so through an empowerment to arm and equip people with the tools, the resources, and the nudge to do the building themselves. And that's kind of like they are the builder and the architect and everything of their own life. Where we come in is as a guide and a facilitator and really a coach and a leader in that. And I think that's what's really cool about the personal development pursuits. And some people do it through immersive cooking classes. Some people do it through photography. Like there's a bunch of different things. Our approach and our mechanism and vehicle for delivery is engaging in some sort of physical movement, pursuit of fitness, but from a place of deep meaning also, that the movement is just an expression of that pursuit of getting better, as you define it.
Yeah, and I think what is interesting is when you were introducing it and talking about how between the ears and strong fit, you know, thinking back to starting CrossFit or my first experience at a level 1 being life-changing. And you could, you know, everything has the potential to kind of get lost a little bit. And what I mean by that is I do think that when I opened the CrossFit gym, that was really what I saw that was a vehicle for getting people better. I think at the time, or
2008.
Yeah, 2008. And it still does, but I think what was different then was people were so like interested in learning, and it was new, and it was like there's like part of getting better that does require learning things and being open. And so while the movements are definitely a vehicle for that, it doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't really work anymore, but when it just becomes kind of complacent and now the focus shifts just to like the outcome, I think that's where we lose it. So even between the ears, and I know you've had this experience, some people that have signed up for an event, they miss the point because they're just so focused on the physical, and they're not interested in learning about themselves.
Right.
So everything does have the ability to have a pitfall in that.
Sure.
But that's kind of where I think it, you know, even CrossFit started out as this vehicle to like really have people improve and better themselves and learn and get exposed to things. And it's kind of gotten away from that, I think, because the focus has just turned towards some external pursuit.
So instead of learning how to do a muscle up and the process and the failure and the trying and the developing the skills and testing and maybe failing a little bit, or Riley, stop. Oh my God, she's about to take the whole set down. So instead of learning about, you know, the muscle up and all the things that go into it, now you're saying the focus is kind of how fast can you do 30 muscle ups, and that being the be all end all.
Right. And people kind of know, everybody knows what a muscle up is now. So it's not even like, ooh, this is interesting. And I do think that's what is really great about the strong fit, and not to just to talk about something that's not ours.
Yeah, for sure.
What really like resonated with me with strong fit is they're very focused on that experience and learning, not really here's how you do a sandbag squat. I mean, while yes, of course there's value to executing things correctly, it's not about the sandbag squat. It's about much more. So
yeah, and that was one of and I don't want to spoil, or I don't want to spoil anything, but that would even be a bit misguided. I don't want to act as if I can now teach the strong fit course, because I obviously cannot. But whatever, either way, one of the first things they talked about was changing either the conversation or having a better conversation about the process by which we learn. And it being a very, like, learning was the emphasis,
right.
You know, and that's the thing from a mindset standpoint. Having a student mindset, having a growth mindset, having a learning mindset, you know, that's the key. And how we do it and how StrongFit presents it and views it and shares it is awesome. And yeah, so the sandbag squats and the pulls and all of that and the mechanical execution of things obviously are important, but the bigger picture is learning. And that's one of the things that I really took to with it over the past couple of years, and then to experience it in person at the course was just amazing. Was that's what Between the Ears is. Learning about yourself. If you don't try to learn about yourself, who possibly can?
Right.
And if you think you know who you are, and if you think you've got it all figured out, and I don't mean that in like a negative way, but like, could you possibly consider that there's maybe some deeper or more refined or nuanced things you can learn about yourself? And what does that look like, and what opportunities do you take to
yeah, and I think that's where that like getting better means, part of getting better means there's built into that is like you have to inevitably kind of fail at things. And that's where I think that disconnect happens. Like nobody wants to fail at anything, or in the process of getting a muscle up, if we're using that example, like, yeah, you're probably not going to decide that you're going to get it and then the next day you get it, and that's the process. There's failing and there's a lot to learn in that. And I think, for me to talk about like, well, how do we all get better? And we've talked about this. I feel like I've had a tremendous shift in the past year through doing, BTE, the practice, different, journaling, all that stuff. And it really, for me, getting better has meant being okay with, not necessarily like failing. I mean, I guess that is part of it, but just being present in the process.
So when you say failing, because you said that a couple times, what have you failed?
I guess failing meaning like not having it all figured out.
What is that failure?
Well, I guess it can be. Like we did a workout the other day.
Yeah.
And it was really hard.
Yes.
And I felt like during it was like a reverse sled drag fast. So during it, I felt like I wasn't going fast enough. Now, that could be like failing. I was failing at the movement because I wasn't going fast enough. Now, old me would have been really frustrated afterwards, or felt like it was a waste, or I didn't do it right, or whatever. That would have been like a failure. I failed to execute the workout as I should have to get results, to make you happy, to whatever, external, validation. But now it's realizing like, well, I mean, whether or not I failed or not, if there was like a speed that the sled should have been going, part of it was like, what did I learn from that process? Okay, like, yeah, if there was a prerequisite speed, let's say, which of course there wasn't, but like, and I didn't hit it, okay, that's an area for me, hey, maybe I need to get better at that area of my athleticism. But ultimately, it's looking at that not as like, did I fail or did I win or did I succeed, but like what was happening, what was moment to moment, what did I feel like, and having that be like, that's the success, not some arbitrary, you hit this speed or you did it in this time or some metric for it. So I guess failing is sort of self-imposed.
Do you think failing is negative?
No, but I will say previously I probably would have said yes.
Right.
So a lot of training, I wasn't ever a high level athlete at all in terms of CrossFit, but at the time, competing at regionals and things like that. And I don't think I ever enjoyed that process. And probably if you asked me just even now looking back, because that was my mindset then, like, yes, I failed at every single regionals I went to. Why? I don't know. I guess I didn't win. I mean, it was very black and white for me. And now it's like, I realize that was an opportunity I kind of lost by being so focused on that outcome. And so for me, being better is like, nobody wants to look back at years of their life or their whole life or whatever it may be and feel like it was just all wrapped up in disappointment in yourself and not having taken it as an opportunity to learn or have experience, joy for yourself or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I mean, I remember very vividly a couple of those regional workouts or training sessions / like, because at the time obviously we weren't living together talking, and you know, failure, in my opinion, it's not an outcome. Like, it's definitely not an outcome, and it's not a positive thing. So, you know, failing to do something, or like quitting on yourself, that's one thing. But like, if you failed to go, we'll just take the sled for example. You said that you failed to go fast enough.
Right.
So, really,
note to self: don't have
the
your
dogs
dog
in here.
part of the podcast.
So you failed to go fast enough, but the
Right.
only reason you're saying you failed is because now this giant word, Riley, stop, come on. This word enough comes into play.
Right.
And so we look at that, and that's always a function of comparison.
Right.
And then personal judgment gets in there. And then you wrap up in the fact that you were you were scared of disappointing me. So there's that. And like, all we're talking about is dragging a sled. And the guidance and the instruction was just go as fast as you can.
Right.
And so if you were going as fast as you can, and your output was 10 miles an hour, let's just say, then how could you possibly fail?
Right.
If that's what it was. But the failure point, like true failure, what would true failure have meant? Because if you were going like, hey, I'm going as fast as I can,
Sure.
and my muscles are no longer able, like they have reached failure,
Right.
that would have been an incredible success, because that was the intention of the work.
Right.
Now obviously we can go into intentions and stuff, but you know, when we look at like what really is failure, and this is a big thing that I talk about with people in between the ears, but like, is failure, if we were to just say failure, and not to dive down the rabbit hole of failure and it being good or bad or whatever, but just as an assessment and a test, is your approach to failure task focused or personal focused? So by that I mean, I don't want to fail. Is it that you don't want to fail the movement? Like you said to yourself, I'm going to do this sled drag in 13 seconds. Right? That was whatever expectation you put on, which is a whole different thing we can talk about. But I'm going to do this reverse sled drag in 13 seconds. And you came across the line and you knew, let's just say 5 seconds in, that it was going to take you 23 seconds. And then you have this thought of, fuck, I don't want to fail. I'm going to fail. Is your concern about failure, is the issue of failure, related to the fact that you are now going to go 10 seconds slower, or what that says about you as a human being? So is it task purpose or personal? The task focus or personal focus?
Right. Well, obviously you just described it. It can be both. For me, I think I was the absolute of what the task wasn't what like disappoints me or frustrates me or is a negative. It's connecting that to something about me as a human. Because I couldn't get the sled there quick enough, I'm fill in the blank.
So it's
not
no
good enough,
longer
not
task
fast enough.
purpose.
Right. But I think that's where like, and when you're looking at failure, like failure for me at this point is, or I guess, like, yes, I understand what you're saying about failure isn't necessarily a negative, but what I'm trying to work on, and since we're talking about becoming better and what that means, is not having it be, you know, and it's just easier to compare to like how I was and like where I've improved, because I have gotten better as a human in this way. You know, not letting that dictate, not letting it dictate what I think of myself as a person, and also not just like quitting, not like, oh, I quit, I had to cease the workout because my legs couldn't physically go anymore, but like quitting in a way of, well, forget it, I'm just not even gonna do